Nate Marshall flips to the Auburn Tigers.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend hanging out with us. Nate Marshall, the very talented defensive lineman from Oak Park, Illinois, plays at Fenwick, flips from Michigan to the Auburn Tigers.
You know, this one, we had heard some of the names that possibly could commit to Auburn before the football season started over the next week. This one was not on there, but it was in the middle of the summer. There was a couple of people that said, hey, just keep an eye on this. Again, look, to put this in perspective, first of all, it looks like Hugh Freeze can recruit nationally outside of the state of Alabama, right? He can do that. He's got that skill set. Oak Park, Illinois, 6'5", 245 is what I've seen some of the measurables. Look at his offer list.
Aubrey says 265.
Okay, well, there you go. So, I mean, that's just, man, that's huge. A mammoth 4-star in the 94.25 rated stud nationally. I mean, a national prospect. And again, his offer list: Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame, Miami, Auburn, and of course, Illinois, because he's in Illinois' backyard. But I mean, he was the defensive.
But also, forget the offer list. He was committed to Michigan. They just won. They're the defending national champs.
Exactly. When you start pulling guys, hopefully from Notre Dame, Michigan, things like that, at a national stage, it's very telling. The kid won the Defensive Player Award in his league last year, I guess so. When you look at his stats, 6 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 4 blocked kicks. How athletic do you have to be to have? And, oh, by the way, I guess he plays tight end. He had 4 touchdown receptions. I mean, he would have to play tight end. That's a pretty big slot receiver, right?
Yeah. I think he's a big basketball player too. And then he realized, I think, how good he was at football. I think that's kind of the story there. But yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, 6'4". I mean, that length as a defensive lineman, and just to kind of go ahead and add this to what Auburn has on their defensive front this class. I mean, you just talk about the impact positions in football, and you want to be able to pursue the quarterback and stop the run and win in the trenches. And Auburn's class, they continue to put it together after flipping Nate Marshall.
And there's a theme here, or a common thread, where Auburn's got a couple of guys in this class that are bigger guys that are multi-sport athletes. You know, they play different sports. Well, and they also play on both sides of the ball. People may think, well, that's not a big deal because when he gets to Auburn, well, it is because of athleticism and quickness and versatility, and shows what he can do as far as skill set. And so I always love multi-sport athletes. I think it's a really, really good feature to have, even though you're going to come to a school and play one position. I don't know. I would think that this guy Nate Marshall absolutely pencils in as an interior defensive lineman. We'll see. I've heard some things where he can play a couple different positions along the defensive front. But wow, what a get, and what a get to get from, like you said, the defending national champion right up there in their neck of the woods.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100%. The Midwest. I mean, you know, he's comfortable up there, and Auburn goes in and plucks him.
Yeah. So this is a guy who Rivals has him as the #1 defensive lineman in the country. ESPN has him as the 4th defensive lineman in the country. On3 and 247 have him as the 12th. The industry ranking say he's the 5th best defensive lineman in this class. And it's like, I don't care who you're committed to. Helps that you're committed to the former national champ.
Right.
I don't care what your offer list is. It's like a top 5 D lineman in the class, and we just flip him out of thin air. It's insane.
Could you imagine being ranked as the #1 defensive lineman in the country and not being a 5-star? Again, I know this is, but I just, some of this stuff, I can't wrap my head around. And as a composite to be 5th in the nation, and it's not like it's a light or soft or weak defensive line class this year. It's pretty stinking good. I don't know. I guess I'm going to stop worrying about that kind of stuff and look at who wanted them.
Who cares?
And where they're ranked by national publications and what scouts say about this guy. Yeah. I read some bios that said he's ready to play in college football right now, day one, physically. So that's a huge – and then some really nice things were said about him from school administrators, about from the time he walked into Fenwick, which sounds like a subsidiary of a Harry Potter school of Hogwarts or something, that the minute he walked in as a freshman, he had a presence, and he is somebody that is very, very well liked at his school. I love hearing that. At Fenwick Academy, baby. Fenwick
Academy.
Yeah, that sounds like something over there in across the pond. But all those intangibles, Michigan doesn't go after kids, and you know this, Zach. They are really, really, I guess, particular about the character of kids and what they do from a leadership standpoint off the field as well as on the field. They are a little bit more stringent with that, and they love this kid. And of course, they hate Auburn now. That they can get in the boat with Notre Dame fans.
Come on. There's plenty of room for everyone. No, and before anybody says anything, it's Fenwick High School. We're aware. We were just
I know. We're making
a joke.
We're happy. We're booging, so we're just joking.
We're just booging.
Yeah,
booging
I know
early
exactly
on a Friday morning. That's right. Yeah, so obviously his ranking is outstanding. So looking at Auburn's class now, the defensive linemen, Malik Autry, Antonio Coleman, Jordan Crawford, who is probably one of the more underrated players in the class. We just never talk about it because he's been committed for so long, I guess. And now Nate Marshall. I mean, you just talk about size, strength, overall mass. It's an awesome D-line class.
And then they went out and got edge guys too, right? That are really, really good along the, so they're all the components of a line of scrimmage when you line somebody up to edge rush on the line of scrimmage, even though they're considered a buck or an edge or a jack, whatever. Yeah. When they stand up on the line of scrimmage, they're at the line of scrimmage. Now, if you counter that and Auburn continues to fill its offensive line needs and reach some of its offensive line targets, it goes back to what you said in the open, Zach. Look at what they're doing along the lines of both scrimmages. And if you want to go back and see how Kirby Smart and Georgia flipped the script and became a 9-10 win team and competing for championships along the line of scrimmage, look how many guys he puts in the league on the defensive line. I've always been excited about Auburn's defensive backfield. I think the linebackers are coming to fruition. Now let's work on the lines of scrimmage. And holy cow, is that going on right now?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's so fun.
This class calculator, when it's all said and done, with some other things that come down the pike that could happen, this could be absolutely historical.
Yeah, I mean, this is in position to be Auburn's best class ever.
Yep, ever.
Which sounds like hyperbole, but I don't think it is.
Well, the great thing about that is it's not just an opinion. You have actual data that you could go to back that up that goes all the way. Now, I get it. They didn't start keeping stats like this in the 70s and the 80s. But you can still do a pretty good deep dive and a calculation and a projection is what some of Auburn's Pat Dye's classes and then the Gene Chizik. And this would end up being the highest rated class ever in the history.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I mean, and again, you're addressing needs too. You're not just looking at certain skill positions and stacking up with a bunch of running backs or receivers. You are addressing needs, and that's important.
All right, I've got a very important question that I'm going to ask you, because I think Auburn struck gold, and I'm not talking about landing Nate Marshall. Let me ask you this question in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our great friends at Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for a concert, whether it's for a sporting event, whatever it may be. Darrell, you and I both always check Game Time first for our tickets, and it's the only place we need to check. Look, Auburn's football season, if you don't have tickets next weekend, where are you going, Darrell?
Oh, I'm going to Game Time. Yeah. Road games, home games. Here's the beautiful part about the flexibility of Game Time. If you have an event like you and your wife have done, just certain events where you've got it planned far out, Game Time saves you money there. If you are last minute, I'm in town, I want to see a Major League Baseball game, let me check the Lightning deals, Game Time can hook you up there. They're very versatile, whether it's 3 months out or whether it's same day, whether it's concert, sports, theater. comedy shows. Look, it covered the theater at the Fenwick Theater. I think that it covers all of that. That's what I love. And again, I just use it. It's right there on my phone. The app is so convenient. I look for the little lightning bolts. And it's so amazing how those are not crap seats either. I don't want people to get the perception that, oh, it's seats nobody wants, so they're going to put them under the light. No, they're really good seats, like a section over. And so I loved it. I used it in Arlington last week. Had some friends and former players that I coached use it.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. So download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you to Game Time for partnering with Locked On Auburn. Darrell, when you talk about everything that Hugh Freeze did this offseason, there's a long list. But did we find a rising star in Auburn defensive line coach Vontrell King-Williams? Because the big question, the big question was, okay, like he seems like he was really involved and hands-on with the development of the defensive line as kind of the assistant D-line coach. But can he recruit? And the answer to that quickly has been answered, and the answer is an astounding yes, absolutely.
Well, you can go and check it. He's the lead recruiter for Marshall, so that checks that box. You never really know, Zach, what you get in a recruiter until it actually starts happening. You have to see the proof is in the pudding kind of thing. You can go watch a practice. You kind of know what he can do from a developmental standpoint or an instruction standpoint because you've watched it for 2 years. And we were all very impressed by how hands-on he was. That's great, but can the guy get out on the trail and close? And you don't know that until he starts closing big dogs. Well, his personality has translated from how people love how he coaches on the field to how he recruits off the field. And these kids seem to really, really react to him in a special way.
Yeah, and I mean, as soon as the D-line coach job was open, everyone I talked to, both defensive linemen and just folks on the team, said, you've got to promote Vontrell.
And that's telling. That's telling.
Yeah.
That right there, you cannot ignore if you're a head coach when the consensus among other coaches and your players is do this. I think that's very, very telling.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, everyone loves this guy. Everybody lights up when he comes in the room. That's kind of the stuff you heard about him. It's like, okay, like he should be able to recruit then. Like that makes sense. Like being likable is a big part of it.
It's a big part of it.
And obviously he's been astounding. And that's something we heard about Nate Marshall is he loves Vontrell. So props to Hugh Freeze for giving Vontrell his chance, and the props to Vontrell for getting this massive jump and this massive opportunity and absolutely knocking it out of the park. It's a really cool story.
It really is. I think that's a great point, a very underrated point. And he'll be looking to do more damage as the years come. This is a great first litmus test that he passed. And I don't want to understate the fact that, and I know there are some things that I've read in the last 24 hours or the last 12 hours about how Michigan's potential sanctions might play a part in this.
Maybe.
We hope it does for Babs, right, the offensive tackle. But I don't care about that. I think this is another example, Zach, of this staff being like Velcro. And it doesn't matter who you're committed to. It ain't over. They don't consider it over until pen goes to paper. They stick with you. They stay on you. It doesn't matter you're committed somewhere else. They're going to still remain in contact with you. And persistence pays off. It's going to do it in another example, too, with some other flips. So that's what I love about this class. They don't just throw, oh, he committed. Let's move on to somebody else. What's plan B?
Right.
Nope, they don't go away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun. So, yeah, just to put a bow on this quick reaction show, Nate Marshall flips from Michigan to the Auburn Tigers, one of the best defensive linemen in the entire country. A consensus top 4 player in Illinois. Illinois has Chicago in it. You take that. You absolutely take that. So, Nate Marshall, congratulations on your flip. Very, very exciting stuff. Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, Dap6410, Instagram, Darrell Dap, Wednesdays and Fridays with you, and then we'll start our reaction show a week from Sunday, right after the Alabama A&M game. It's here already, folks. Let's go. Let's boog.
Let's boog. That's right. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. Check out all of our scoops at thebarnauburn.com, and we'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.